Hi, welcome to Station F. We are the world's biggest startup campus, and today I'm here with Brian Solis. Brian, I think everybody knows you, but for that one guy who doesn't know you, would you mind introducing yourself? I think you've been in the digital space for quite a while. You've had a lot of great different experiences, so please let us know a little bit about it.
Well, okay. In 15 seconds or less, I started in the startup world in the mid-90s, so I'm part of that gray-haired generation by now. I've also helped launch, it's got to be over 1,000 startups over the years. I've helped define a lot of the spaces that startups created trends for that became very transformative. And just with that, I became an author, a speaker, an analyst, a digital anthropologist. And now these days, I'm spending my time trying to study disruptive technology, the impact it has on business and society, and trying to make some real, hopefully solid predictions and paths to solutions for everything from business to education to politics.
And you've been big on kind of identifying key digital trends and kind of where the big innovation's at. So what do you see for 2017 as like the real changer?
Wow. Well, so much. Every year I publish this thing called the Wheel of Disruption, and it leads to this report I always publish, the 25 disruptive trends for the next few years. And I publish it every January. And it's what, March, April, and I still haven't published it this year because there's just too much going on with all of these disruptive technologies that are gaining traction. So I used to be able to draw the wheel of disruption and say, these are the things that are happening. And now it's this full orchestrated graphic effect that I had to update already before January. Now I have to update it again. So it's a long-winded answer of saying, where do you want to start? I mean, 2017 is the year of AI starting to get traction, where you're starting to see AR, VR start to find its legs in terms of providing real-world applications. You have all kinds of medical innovations that are going inside of bodies and pilots. This list could go on and on and on, but what I'm also studying, and that's really important for 2017, and I think just beyond, is the disruption that's going to happen that we're not even considering in older demographics and older business models that are not going to be able to compete with new expertise, new markets, new how customers and employers make decisions. I mean, there's so many things that are going to happen simply because older people aren't learning new things, and new things are gaining so much speed, so much traction. And we've already started to see it play out in politics. We're going to watch it play out here in France in a little bit.
Oh my God.
That, I think one of the things that I'm going to spend my time doing is working on building bridges to those people, because it's one thing to leave them behind, it's another thing to try to at least bring them with evolution, because it's not going to go backwards.
And how do you actually measure because there's so many like buzzwords and keywords, how do you measure what's actually an effective technology and what's not?
This is one of the reasons, I don't have an algorithm for that, but maybe I should. This is one of the reasons why I look at anthropology, because when you start to watch how people change as a result of technology, you get better predictors as to how long it's going to take, what that change is going to look like now and over time, and when it's really going to make big shifts and what those shifts will look like. So there's no one answer to that. You just watch it evolve, and you also watch these trends accelerate. So I could tell you that for the most part, as hot as VR and AR are for 2017, you're not really going to see anything major from it for a good couple of years. And that's because the architects of those experiences are still young in terms of playing around with what the technology can do. But once we start to understand the possibilities, the experiences that we want people to have, the vertical applications that these technologies will enable, then you'll see all kinds of shifts really take place. So you're more like forecasting these things and playing them out. So one of the titles I have is a futurist, and a lot of people think that it's, Brian is going to predict the future, and that's what that title is. And it's more about scenario playing. Like, what does this technology look like? How's that going to play out in school? How's it going to play out in work? How's it going to play out in healthcare? And then you work backwards from there, and you get sort of interesting timelines. And then the most interesting part is the human behavior. How how are people going to and how are they not going to change? And that's where I'm super inspired, is that a lot of the geeks like us will jump all over these things, and people are already jumping on all of these trends. That's why we have bots everywhere now, but and I wish we didn't until they got a little bit better. But there are people who are resistant to all of this stuff, and that's where the problem lies. And in the States, we have a little bit of a political fiasco happening, and we're trying to bring jobs back, you know, these jobs that left the country decades ago, and we're not talking about the jobs that are going to go away over the next several decades with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think that if this is why I'm getting back into the startup world again, is because I'm going to try to work with companies to solve those problems.
Great. Well, I think we're at the beginning of a lot of these trends. We're going to have to watch what actually happens. I now want to call you out on the fact that you called Silicon Valley a mess. What did you mean by that? And what do you think maybe Europe has to offer that maybe Silicon Valley's messiness cannot?
I think, well, I'm a big fan of the Silicon Valleys around the world, and I've personally invested time and resources here in Paris and all around the world of trying to bring good people together and learn from those good people as well. Silicon Valley became so insular over the last, decades, but specifically over the last several years. I think part of the challenge was that we didn't recognize what was happening around the rest of the country, and we closed ourselves off to a lot of the problems that America was facing. And I think it's the same types of problems that you can expand exponentially around the world, that we were progressing so quickly, we were making so much money, we were taking that money and starting all over again and making more money, and we created these ecosystems that missed how America was progressing. And I think we could have been solving a lot of those problems that would have hopefully have prevented a Trump victory and other victories like it over time. But it's almost like we lost sight of what value was. What was the purpose of Silicon Valley? What did it mean to be in Silicon Valley? We started to see, we've seen waves of this too. It's not unlike what we saw with Web 1.0 and the dot-bomb crash, was that you had people just coming in from all over the world. And now you talk to any startup, we're the Uber of this or we're the Airbnb of that. And I don't know, I think about 1,000 companies in the last few months got funded for their Facebook bots. And it's just sort of lost sight of what its role in the world and what its role in technology should be. If Silicon Valley is the guiding light, or if it is the source of inspiration for models around the world, then I think we lost our leadership. There was no sort of vision for Silicon Valley as a thing. There's no spokesperson for Silicon Valley as a thing. You just are watching all these incredible flameouts. You're watching all of these the backstory of drug use and hyper-competitiveness, cheating, lying, scamming, all kinds of just things that make Silicon Valley now start to sound like 80s New York. And
Wow.
I'm hoping it's coming back around. There's really good people that are trying to do good things, but I'm also watching really good people go outside of Silicon Valley now at alarming rates and not coming back and not bringing any of those insights back. So hopefully there's something to be done for that.
Hopefully. And do you see other ecosystems not having similar kind of tendencies, or do you think that there is a potential for all these ecosystems to kind of spin out of control in the same way?
I would bet that they're going to spin out of control in the same way. I think that one thing that we can use Silicon Valley for is a lesson. It's just a very public lesson of what happens when you get excess of talent and money and ideas, and it's bound to happen everywhere. But there's also lessons to be learned from that, and hopefully that those lessons are absorbed before they spin out of control. And it's true for every industry. But because Silicon Valley has had so much time to incubate, of course those problems gain deeper roots.
Of course. Well, we'll have to make sure it doesn't happen here. You've had a chance to work with so many incredible people, and I think my team and probably the whole ecosystem here in Paris is curious to know what working with high, crazy celebrities is like. So we took an example of Ashton Kutcher. What is it like to work with someone like that?
He is a smart and charming individual. So for for all of his fans that are watching this, I mean, he's absolutely better than you could imagine. He's a real good guy. So we were business partners for several years, and it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of work together with Oprah Winfrey and the United Nations and the Super Bowl, and we launched the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. Just a lot of fun. I helped him make his first startup investments,
wow.
which was very cool. But I'm not in the business to work with celebrities, and so the time for me to move on came, and that was because I just short attention span theater. I always have to keep thinking about what's next and keep going. And I moved into a space that was tracking corporate innovation and digital transformation, and I come back every now and then. I worked with Shaq recently on some of his startup investments, and but I will say this: that celebrities have a unique perspective on the world.
What does that mean?
That means that they just see things through the eyes of rose-colored glasses. Let's just say that.
So Silicon Valley is still beautiful for them.
Everything is beautiful for them because they pretty much get what they want, and that's cool. And that also means that they need a buffer, someone to help them make their investments. Ashton's a very good example of what that buffer could look like. He's made some
very good investments.
Good investments. In fact, I sort of wish I could have stayed along with him. I'd be in a much different place today.
That's crazy. Well, he has done very, very well, but probably in part thanks to you. I'd love for any startups watching this to be able to take advantage of kind of the millions of startups that you've seen and thousands you've helped launch. You have some really good advice, I'm sure. So I'd love to know, how would you advise startups with regards to their brand, with regards to marketing, working with their first users? Just what are kind of some bits of advice that you have for startups? How much
time do we have? Well, first I'm going to apologize to everybody watching this. I just got off a plane from San Francisco, and so my brain isn't firing the way it usually does. A glass of champagne will fix that, though.
We'll get it for you.
The best advice that I could give is on multiple levels, and one is that a lot of startups they build companies around great ideas. And in some cases, those ideas become acquirable by other companies that need those ideas. But I do see a lot of startups and founders getting into the game because they think their ideas are the best ideas. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as you get older, you start to look at statistics, you start to look at the world, you start to look at things pragmatically and less hopefully. I'm an optimist, but when we're talking about businesses, I don't see enough founders really thinking about what the business is, what's the problem that they're solving, what does the company look like today, and then what does the process look like for reinventing or basically accelerating the value 18 months from now. Because what the company is today is not going to be as valuable as it is in 12 months. There has to always be ongoing services, iteration, innovation. There has to be processes that the company doesn't necessarily plan because it's always thinking about that idea and trying to bring that idea to market and dealing with all of the hassles of what it takes to do that as a company. The reason I say that is because I see so many companies fail. And I don't think companies have to fail at such alarming rates if they recognize that part of being a startup and part of the allure of being a founder is that you're building a business and someone's putting money and you have a fiduciary responsibility to do something with that money. And unfortunately, and this is why Silicon Valley has sort of become a mess over the years, is that there wasn't enough holding people's hands to the fire to turn those investments back into tangible ROI in various forms, not even just money, but just milestones that were going to show that the company was on the right track. So this is when we talk about brand and we talk about marketing, we talk about user community development, user acquisition. A lot of these are gamed, right, with growth hacking and trying to get people's attention. But I think a lot of times too, those are those are the types of companies that don't have that solution that people, I think the two best users are people that have a problem that needs solved, or people that didn't know they had a problem. Now they can't live without that application or service or technology now that they've seen it or tasted it. And so I think that any useful or any utility-based brand marketing strategy is the most powerful form of engagement. Otherwise, it's just novelty, or otherwise it's just noise. And there's a lot of novelty, a lot of noise. We could just look at the bot space right now. If I could, when I used to mentor companies, or I used to invest in companies, or I used to just work with founders, I had to peel back all kinds of crazy layers of overexcitement, or a bunch of egos, or just this weird sort of starry-eyed, I'm a celebrity sort of perspective, to get to the heart of, like, why did you do this? Why did you start this company? Can't just be about the idea, because you're in this for the long haul, and you're going to have sleepless nights. You're going to be eating ramen for a long time. So let's get to how we get your value to the market in ways that make it all worth it, not just for you, but for the people who are going to use your products and services.
Super. I love your bot anger.
So much.
We'll have to see if we can get a bot that impresses you somehow. But Brian, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for all your insights.
Oh, well, if they're insights, then you're welcome, but thank you.